Can the government deport someone just for their political beliefs? In this explosive Senate hearing, Senator Chris Murphy presses Secretary Kristi Noem on the shocking case of Kilmargo Abrego Garcia, and the answers reveal the real tension between executive power, the Supreme Court, and the rights of residents in the United States. Stay tuned, because what happens here affects every American.
Secretary, AI is an enormous growing industry critical to the future economic health of the country. We have had the benefit over the years of the top talent in AI, researchers, students coming to the United States to help us grow that industry. But for the first time in the last 15 years, there are more top talented individuals and workers in AI leaving the country than coming here. And the reason is pretty simple. People who are coming here to work from overseas through the visa program are very uncertain about what their rights are. And that is because of the actions this administration has taken. So I think it's important to get on the record for those individuals who are here currently and those thinking of coming to the United States to work or to study to understand what their rights are. So let me ask you a series of pretty simple questions. Probably the key of right amongst the 5 freedoms is the right to free speech, the right to express your own personal opinion about politics, culture, the economy. Do you believe that you have the right to detain or deport a U.S. citizen for simply expressing their political opinion, a U.S. citizen?
No.
No. Do you believe that you have the right to detain or deport a legal permanent resident for expressing their political opinion?
I don't make decisions on legal status here in the United States. The Department of State does that, and I would say that as they've gone through an evaluation of who gets a visa, who gets legal status, green cards, they've been evaluating and discussing how that applies.
Well,
to
I acknowledge that you don't. I acknowledge you don't make. Right. But if someone is a legal permanent resident of the United States, I'm not talking about an H-1B or a student visa holder. I'm talking about a legal permanent resident. If you are a legal permanent resident, do you have the right to detain or deport that person simply for expressing their political opinion?
The Department of State makes those decisions.
No,
and the
they
Department
don't.
of Homeland Security.
You make that decision about who you have the right to detain or deport. So you are involved in that? Do you believe the United States, do you believe the law allows?
The Department of Homeland Security under the Trump administration is enforcing the law, following the constitutional rights of folks who are here as citizens, those who are here legally, and those who are here illegally.
So a legal permanent resident is by definition here legally. Do you believe, I mean, I think this is really troubling if you can't answer this simple question. Do you believe that the U.S. government can detain and deport a legal permanent resident for expressing a political opinion that the administration disagrees with?
The determination you're asking for is based on things that you are determining that the Secretary of State has considered and evaluated. We don't evaluate that, the administration, along with a partnership with the Department of State, on what is political speech and what's an affiliation with a foreign terrorist organization.
Do you believe?
That's the difference between the two that you're asking.
That you can detain and deport a legal permanent resident for expressing a political opinion?
We have not detained we have not deported anybody who's a legal permanent resident or a citizen of the United States.
Then say you don't have the ability to do that.
We have
clarify that for the
true.
Millions of.
That is exactly what I'm doing, is that we have followed exactly what the law is, and that we have not detained or deported anybody who's a citizen or has legal status in this country. We are focused on the worst of the worst dangerous criminals.
You do not believe you have
to get them out of the country.
You do not believe you have the ability to do that.
We have not done that at all, and the Trump administration has no plans.
Well, just because you haven't done it doesn't mean that you won't do it in the future.
We are following
do you believe you have the ability to do that or not?
That we are doing.
I think you were going to.
The exact appropriate thing in partnership with the Department of State and in partnership with the Trump administration.
Have you read I assume you have read the Supreme Court decision in the case of Kilmargo Abrego Garcia?
Yes.
That court decision requires the administration to facilitate Kilmargo Abrego Garcia's release from El Salvador. Can you describe the steps that you have taken to facilitate this release? And specifically, can you answer as to whether you have reached out to your counterpart in El Salvador to facilitate Mr. Abrego Garcia's release?
Abrego Garcia is a citizen of El Salvador and should never have been in this country and will not be coming back to this country. There is no scenario where Abrego Garcia will be in the United States again. If he were to come back, we would immediately deport him again because he is a terrorist, he's a human smuggler, and he is a wife beater.
You've read the Supreme Court decision. Does the Supreme Court decision not require you to facilitate the return of Mr. Abrego Garcia?
The Trump administration is complying with all court orders and judges' orders.
Does the Supreme Court order require you to facilitate the return of Mr. Abrego Garcia?
Is a citizen of El Salvador. It is up to the president of the El Salvador to make the decision.
You're a defendant
on
in
if
the
he
case.
is coming back. It's been a big topic of conversation between all of us, between the country. When the president visited the United States of America, it was discussed and talked about there. The president has been very clear on this issue, as the Secretary of State and I have as well. Abrego Garcia is not a citizen of this country and is a dangerous individual who does not belong here.
I will not ask another question, Madam Chair. But the discussion,
we would immediately
but the discussion ends when the Supreme Court rules 9-0 that you have to facilitate his release. And the fact that you can't even acknowledge the wording of the order, which commands you to facilitate his release, and you advertise to this committee that you are going to willfully ignore the ruling, and that is incredibly chilling for the balance of powers in a democracy that relies on the executive branch to honor decisions made by the highest court of the land.
In this intense Senate hearing, we witnessed a profound clash between Senator Chris Murphy and Secretary Kristi Noem over the case of Kilmargo Abrego Garcia, a scenario that goes far beyond a simple immigration dispute. At its core, this exchange raises fundamental questions about the limits of executive power, the responsibilities of government officials to comply with judicial rulings, and the constitutional rights of residents and citizens in the United States. Senator Murphy's line of questioning was precise and relentless. He sought to understand whether a legal permanent resident, or, by extension, any U.S. citizen, could be detained or deported merely for expressing a political opinion. This isn't just an abstract legal point. It cuts directly to the heart of democratic principles: freedom of speech, protection under the law, and the separation of powers that keeps government accountable. Secretary Noem's responses were carefully measured, emphasizing that the Trump administration had not taken such actions and that the focus was on individuals committing the worst of the worst crimes. However, her answers also revealed a notable ambiguity about executive authority, leaving the door open to interpretations that may worry those concerned with civil liberties. For viewers, this is a critical lesson. When government officials avoid committing to clear boundaries, it can create uncertainty about the protections afforded to residents and citizens. The implications are profound because in a democracy, the rule of law must be applied consistently and transparently, or the system risks being undermined. The exchange became even more consequential when Murphy referenced the Supreme Court ruling that mandates the administration facilitate the release of Abrego Garcia from El Salvador. The Supreme Court, as the highest judicial authority, sets binding legal standards, and its orders are not merely advisory. Yet, Noem insisted that Garcia, identified as a dangerous individual with a history of human smuggling and domestic violence, would not be allowed back into the United States under any scenario. She deferred ultimate responsibility to the government of El Salvador, stating that they would decide the outcome. This moment highlights a fundamental tension in American governance. The executive branch has discretion in enforcing the law, but it is constitutionally required to follow the mandates of the judiciary. Failure to do so, even symbolically, can erode public trust and destabilize the balance of powers that is central to American democracy. Beyond the immediate political and legal dimensions, this hearing also teaches viewers about the complexities of immigration law and international diplomacy. Legal mechanisms exist to manage cases like Garcia's, but the human reality is that these laws interact with the personal histories and behaviors of individuals, and with political calculations made by officials. Observing these hearings gives citizens insight into how high-level policy decisions are not theoretical. They have real-world consequences for individuals, communities, and even foreign relations. Furthermore, the exchange underscores the importance of congressional oversight. Senators are tasked with ensuring that executive agencies operate within legal and constitutional boundaries. By pressing Noem for clarity, Murphy demonstrated the essential role of oversight in maintaining a functioning democracy. This is not just political theater. It is a concrete example of accountability in action, showing how elected representatives safeguard constitutional rights and ensure that the government respects judicial rulings. For viewers who want to truly understand the mechanics of American democracy, hearings like this are invaluable. They reveal the tension between different branches of government, the challenges of enforcing laws fairly, and the potential risks when power is concentrated without adequate oversight. By examining the Noem-Murphy exchange, one can see the practical implications of abstract principles like separation of powers, rule of law, and human rights protections. This is why it's crucial to follow these developments and engage critically with the actions of government. The story of Kilmargo Abrego Garcia is more than a news item. It's a lens through which we can study accountability, civil liberties, and the responsibilities in power. Staying informed allows citizens to advocate for transparency, ensure constitutional protections are respected, and understand the complex interplay between law, policy, and human impact. If you want to stay informed on critical government actions, understand how these legal and political decisions affect real people, and see deep analysis that goes beyond the headlines, subscribe to Left Lens. We break down these hearings, provide context, and explore their broader implications for democracy, civil liberties, and accountability in government. Staying informed allows citizens to advocate for transparency, ensure constitutional protections are respected, and understand the complex interplay between law, policy, and human impact.